So welcome back to the tool shed. In this tool, I want to talk to you about what I call excavating your life. So when I'm working with clients or when I'm doing my own work, 5 a.m. on the couch, when I get up and I sit and I write or I meditate, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm excavating. Because if you think about, let's say, building something out in the world, there are two ways to go about it. You can do it expediently, or you can do it effectively, and they're not always the same thing. So I was talking to a guy recently who's building a house, doing a house project, and his neighbor built his house obviously right next door, but didn't do the proper excavation, and now he's paying a heavy price because the foundation is structurally flawed. And he's excavating. He's paying a lot of extra money for the right excavations and the plans, etc. But he's doing all this work ahead of time, so he doesn't have to do it later. Well, if only life were that clear, because so often we end up just building our home, so to speak, building our lives on top of shaky foundations, all kinds of shaky foundations in our marriage or with our parents or in our professional life, how we feel about ourselves. And so what we do is we just keep adding layers. We just keep adding levels to it, building on top of it. And yeah, sometimes that works, but sometimes you can feel a tremor coming with an earthquake, or sometimes the house collapse altogether. So instead of just allowing the house collapse, the work that I do with people in coaching, counseling, and therapy, and in my own life is excavating, going underneath the presenting issue. Somebody will come in and talk about grief, right? And what we find out later is it's not just grief, it's feelings of shame, having lost their parent, and now it's bringing that up. And so we start excavating, going underneath the grief, and then underneath that, and underneath that, and we start digging down. I used to really think more about how do I market my services? Am I a grief counselor, which is really where my expertise originally was? Am I a logotherapist, meaning-centered guide? Am I a spiritual coach? All these things. What I've come to realize 20 years later is none of that matters. We're all dealing with the same shit. The question is, that's just a presenting problem. It could be a divorce, could be a midlife meaningless feeling or midlife crisis, could be a retirement age. What do I do next? Could be the empty nest, could be, again, the loss of a loved one, could be a mortality issue, whatever it is. It always gets to the same place, which is what's underneath that, and what's underneath that, and what's underneath that. And not allowing the people that I work with, or not allowing ourselves, to get away with, oh, that's the problem. It's my marriage. If I fix my marriage, then I'll be fine. Then I'll have meaning. Then I'll have intimacy. It's never the marriage problem. The marriage is a symptom, right? But what is the root cause? Now you may say, hey, B, right? I'm in an abusive relationship, or something was done to me. I've been victimized. I don't doubt that. I never disagree with somebody who's been victimized. Of course, I sit with them in compassion. However, if that's true and we're only a victim, then we're powerless. We're just simply waiting for our circumstances to change, waiting for that person to change. And I don't believe for a second that we are powerless. As Viktor Frankl said, we can always change our response to our circumstances. And that means taking responsibility for what's mine in this situation. How did I end up back in this abusive relationship for the third time, the fifth time? How did I end up back in that bar, falling off the wagon? Over and over again, challenging ourselves, what's underneath that, and what's underneath that, and continuing down this path of excavation. And that's what it means to excavate your life. And when you do, you get down to the studs, you get down to the bedrock, and from there you can build, and whatever you build on bedrock is going to withstand the test of time. Yes, it's an investment of energy, time, money, resources, whatever, but it's worthy. Right? It's a worthy investment. So instead of just dealing with the symptoms, putting Band-Aids on things, right? Plowing through it, powering through it, maybe now's the time to excavate your life and asking yourself what's underneath that, and what's underneath that, and what's underneath that, and drilling down to bedrock. And that is the starting point of building a life. I'll see you in the next tool.